everybody. Spirit of 420 here because everything I do is so 420. I'm texting a buddy of mine. I'm a little worried, but I'm sure that he's okay. I know he always triumphs. So we will talk later. Love you, buddy. Anyway, tonight is so the first thing I'll say is if you can't figure out my crazy language, which I love to do, I finally got a job. I landed a job yesterday. Let's see. I have been without official employment. I mean, I started a company and I get that. That's different. But I haven't been an employee of anybody, or employed, if you will, with steady income since October 3rd of 2022, just 19 days before I lost my son. So it's been a long time coming, and all I can tell you is it was a real what's the word? It was needed. The weed burglar has escaped. I love it. Yep. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. You know, life is full of ups and downs. Without the ups, you can't have the downs, and vice versa, right? So you have to know that life is going to hand you your fair share. In fact, and I would say some people will agree with this. There's times when we feel like life is handing us more than our fair share. It's really funny because I really get, so to talk about this, I was gonna, let's see what you said right there. Oh, I know, we will. And that's why I said, yes. We will. I promise, brother. We can either talk later tonight after this, or we can talk first thing tomorrow once I wake up, which will be late. So in a shell nut, like I said, I've been really busting my ass to try to get a job. Don't think for a minute that I wasn't. I have gone through, I can't tell you how many times I changed my resume, altered it, whatever, fixed it, whatever you want to call it, fine-tuned it. What's the real word I'm looking for? Optimized it. That was the word I was looking for. I can't tell you how many times I optimized my resume and changed it. And I went through having that on there because people ask, why did you lose your job? Well, to be transparent about it, I felt it was best considering the way I truly lost my job was I was fired, but I was fired without reason. And I was fired while on top of my game. What I mean by that is nobody sold as much for them. I'm pretty sure that I actually made more than the freaking owner did the last year I was there. I still to this day don't know why I was fired. I did everything I was ever asked to do, and I'm not going to go into the long explanation of it, but even when it comes to what he supposedly, and I say supposedly, it was still never put into writing. I was never specifically given. He got upset at me about something. An hour later, he called and said, we're discontinuing our relationship. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. And this is a job that I truly thought I was going to retire from. I will say this, I don't stop believing, and I don't stop achieving, and I don't stop putting forth the same effort every time. The job that I got yesterday that I'm starting Monday, I believe truly is the job that I will retire with. I may take another job. And what I mean by that is there's another one that finally, after all this time, is interested, and I may take it part-time and close some deals for them too. Why not make some extra money? But the reality is this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. As I said, everything happens for a reason. So let me start off with what I went through. And what I mean by that is what all I did to get the job. I started talking to the recruiter or director of hiring almost 3 months ago. And it started off great. And what I mean by that is right after our first conversation, I'm very, one of the reasons that I'm good at sales is I ask the tough questions, and I'm not scared to do that. And I'm not scared to delve into someone's personal, matters, because that usually has an effect on any decision they're making, whether it's hiring somebody, buying something, selling something, it has an effect, right? So I always, at the end of an interview, I will absolutely be like, where would you rate me? And what do you feel, my performance was? I wouldn't ask that until the very end, right? Because that's part of my performance. But the reality is, yes, I'm always going to ask that. And even after the first phone call with her, she said to me, "You are without a doubt at the top of my list." She's like, "I've totally enjoyed you." And by the time I talked to her, I should back up. I'd already been going through a couple of assessments and some email contact back and forth for, I'd say, I want to say about 7 business days or so, right? So it's, it wasn't quite 2 weeks, but almost a couple of weeks I'd been going back and forth. I had to take some assessments because they're looking for a specific type of person, right? And I get that. And it's funny, just to digress right there for a minute and delve into that. I hate taking assessments. I do not believe in them. And one day, maybe if I really, concrete myself and excuse me, really cement myself into really submit myself into this position where, I'm invaluable to them, I might even put my 2 cents in and say, I really think blah, blah, blah. However, they're probably going to come back and they're going to say, well, number one, that's how you got in. Number two, we've been doing it. This is what most companies say when you tackle something like this. We've been doing it this way for a while, and the results have been blah, blah, blah. My thing is, I have found from when I was hiring, and I used to be I've had my own companies, and I've also been a hiring manager for other companies, sales manager, and that kind of thing. One of the things that, I did not implement when I was hiring were assessments. I didn't want a character assessment. I didn't want an intellectual assessment. I didn't want a personality. Is that what I said? No, I don't think I said that. Personality, whatever. I didn't want any kind of assessment. And here's why. I know for a fact that I was passed up on in my lifetime since they started doing that. And, that hasn't been always, but they've really, it's getting heavier and heavier with the technology age, because the way that they view it, it's a funneling system. You take this assessment, that knocks out half, take another one, that knocks out. That said, I have been passed up for at least 20 positions over the years that I know for a fact I would have sold well at, because I've sold something similar, or I had sold the exact same thing, or whatever. It doesn't matter. I know for a fact, and there's no disputing it, but their software, their test said that I wasn't the right fit. Right. So I got this position and I took the assessments, but I'll tell you this, I think it'll be a funny story one day. It's already a little bit funny now, and she laughs about it. She laughed about it the first time we spoke. But I literally almost didn't take the assessment and passed up the opportunity. And it's funny because a quick, even to go back even further, one of the ways that they rooted out, or weeded out, if you will, a lot of people in the beginning, because apparently like over 1,000 people applied, and there was just myself and another guy hired. But one of the ways they weeded out a lot of people is they did one of the sneaky moves, if you will. And it's not so much sneaky as it just shows you who's actually reading an entire job posting and who scans it for, how much am I going to make and blah, blah, blah. I'm guilty of it, by the way, folks. I have done it many times. I have been getting better because it is now a highly implemented tactic to put into an advertisement, a job ad, if you will, particularly on a place like Indeed or Career Builder, which is an old one I know, Monster, Recruiter, Zip Recruiter. Those are all, most of them have now a single button apply, right? And all you really have to do is add your cover letter. And usually once you add it, you just have to alter it for each job. But what these companies have started doing is at the very end, they're like, if you are interested, please do not apply through whatever platform they're on, right? So I was on Indeed, like, please do not use Indeed to apply. Please follow these simple instructions. Literally, that's what they say. Shoot an email here with this, this, and this, please. That you would be surprised at what's that saying? Oh, yeah. Do you feel lighter? You'd be surprised at how many people that knocks out. I know I have lost quite a few positions because I did it that way, and then even tried to come back. But like once you've done it, you've already proven to them that you didn't. They don't want to see your application come through that platform, right? They don't. If it does, that's like if your application comes through there, even if you end up sending an email, you're already done. You're done. So that's one way. I won't get into all the other things, but there was multiple assessments because what they were looking for was a certain personality, a certain intellect, and a certain ability to listen, if you will, and quick thinking, those kind of things. And what's funny is, so the first time, I told you, I knew I'd get back. I told you I would. After the first time I talked to her, she tells me, you are at, I asked the question, what do you think of me? What are your feelings thus far? And I'd already taken the assessments. Okay. So I wouldn't be talking to her if I hadn't passed those things. Right. And she's like, well, you're at the top of my list. And I was like, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And she's like, I'm going to be talking to the owner tomorrow. And now bear in mind that by the time I was talking to her, this is still like 2.5 months ago. Right. She's like, I'll be talking to the owner, and you're going to be the first thing that I bring up in that discussion. Well, that was on a Tuesday, so I knew she was going to be talking on Wednesday, right? And I am a king of follow-up, but I didn't want to bother her. I didn't hear from her Wednesday, and I didn't hear from her Friday. So I finally reached out, or I didn't hear from her. I didn't hear from her Wednesday, and I didn't hear from her Thursday. So I finally reached out to her on Friday, if I remember correctly. I might have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it was me, or she did text me. It doesn't matter. But the funny thing is, by that time I was thinking, okay, well, this isn't good, right? You're number one on the list, but you go to talk to the owner, and I haven't heard back. That's generally, just so y'all know, that's not a good sign that things are moving forward in the right direction, right? So I was kind of reluctant. I'm pretty sure I did text her, because I wanted to find out what was going on. And she ended up calling me back. I know that ultimately what ended up happening, we spoke on Tuesday, and then we ended up speaking on Friday again. And what she said to me on Friday, literally my stomach dropped out, because I really thought I had a great opportunity. I jumped through a lot of hoops. By the way, one of the things that I didn't mention, or I started to mention, but I told you I didn't want to take the assessment, and she was like, hey, just do it and see what happens. No big deal. I really like you already. This is what she said even before I took the assessment. She's like, I really like you already, and I'd like to talk to you, but let's just see what happens, right? So, and again, I just don't like those assessments, because I feel like sometimes they get it wrong. And what I mean by that is, just because it says they won't be a good fit doesn't mean that you will. Doesn't mean that you won't be, excuse me. So I'd already gone through quite a bit, right? And I get on the phone, and she's like, so I have some bad and I have some good news. And I was like, oh, here we go. In the simplest of terms, the owner, who, by the way, I read about him, I'd already done my research. This guy had been doing what he's doing for 22 years. He had extremely positive reputation, very well known, particularly in his home state, and was now starting to take that on a national level, right? And within an industry that is recession proof, and he has again, the reputation and the social proof was that of that he was a very um, I don't like using the word honest because everybody always says if you say somebody's honest or if you say you're honest, then that means you're not. So extremely transparent and straightforward guy, right? And I was really impressed. And she's like, yeah, he has put a pause on everything. He's like, he put a pause on hiring. He has paused everything, and we're not really sure what's going on. Oh, shit. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll hang in and she's like, I really like you and you will be the first one. And she's like, I believe that we will start hiring again at some point, but I don't know what's happening right now. And she really did. So last week, I did an interview with, and this was a Zoom interview. I did an interview with the owner, the guy that put the pause on the company. And he even brought that up in the conversation because it was myself and two other guys, and this was what they had gotten. They had over 1,000, and they had boiled it down to the three of us. So we were on a group interview, and it was just the four of us, so it wasn't a huge group. All right, we're on a group interview, and the guy was telling us the story, and this it was amazing to me when he said this because I was like, oh, okay, well that totally fucking makes sense. So he was like, yeah, a couple months ago, we were doing one program, and as you know, I forgot to mention. So let me back up just a little bit. I apologize. About 2.5 weeks ago, I was like, okay, I just got this sudden feeling. I was like, I need to text her, and I texted her. I was like, hey, how's it going? I just wanted to touch base and see how things were progressing over there and where things were at, and if possibly they were at a point where we could maybe, put the gas back on and continue what we were doing. And she texts back, she's like, oh my God, that is amazing. Cause he just told us today that we're going to start hiring. And bottom line was he was going to be looking for 3 people to bring on board. They had just launched a brand new program. It's within the real estate industry. So I'll just leave it at that. But they had just launched a brand new program, right? And what was really awesome about this is this one was even, in her opinion, even better. Well, I get onto the interview with the guy, and he's telling us about that. He's like, so yeah, a couple months ago, I literally put the brakes on everything. He's like, I was not feeling very good about everything because I was starting to feel like we were taking advantage of the sellers. He's like, I feel like we were taking too much money. So I literally put a pause on everything. Funny enough, he said, I almost shut the company down. He's like, no kid. I mean, this guy's a multimillionaire. He could quit right now and he's going to be fine, right? Like he's not hurting for money. So he's like, I almost shut the whole thing down, but I said, I'm going to put a pause on it. I'm going to take the weekend, pray on it, and figure out what to do. And that was where it really got me, that not only did he tell me in an interview, first time meeting him, that he prayed about something to make a decision, but it was clearly not saying it like you have to pray to be a part of this company. He was just telling the story of how he got to where he got to, right? How he had progressed to this point where he was now. And what's really cool is with the old program, the sellers, and you'll get this, I don't have to tell you the whole thing. You don't have to understand all that. This is simple. The sellers were getting somewhere between 70 and 75% of the cash, 75% cash value of what they were of the home, right? Now they're getting 90 or more. Like that's a huge difference. And it's amazing because he actually cares. And it's funny because I was interviewing with after that, I ended up interviewing with his COO. And he's an old school guy. It's kind of actually reminds me of me because he's a phone guy. So he doesn't do a Zoom. He just likes to talk and just, he can tell everything he needs to know by listening, right? Not that he's afraid to get on a Zoom call. That's just who he is. And I'm the same way. I'm not afraid to get on Zoom, but I actually prefer how do I say it? I prefer the phone without Zoom. Zoom, although it's a useful tool, just on a side note, it's visual, right? So when you're talking to them, there is the chance that they are being pulled away visually by other things. Now, you can probably sit there and justify and go, yeah, Michael, well, that easily could happen to somebody else, right? And what I mean by that is somebody who you're talking to could easily be staring at the computer and not listening to you. True. Funny enough, though, when I am talking to somebody, I can tell if they're listening because I constantly have questions that I require active feedback in the conversation, right? So, and this guy is similar to me in that sense. He likes talking. And when we were talking, it was funny because, how do I say it? It was different than other conversations that I've had with other interviews. He was really looking to get to know me. And from the very beginning of the conversation, you know, it's funny because he had a list of questions to ask, but throughout our conversation and me just sharing, I end up answering like 90% of the questions. And it's funny, he's like, many times I have to ask these. And he ended up, there was one that he forgot and he asked, and I want to come back to that in a minute, but he's like, I usually have to ask all these questions, but you were really, you were quite, he didn't say transparent, but he was like, you were like an open book or something like that. I can't remember what he said. And what's funny is he had said something, and he too, I know some people may think this is hokey, but I know I'm in the right place because he too is someone that has a relationship with God. And while talking to him, I ended up talking about the fact that I lost my son. I'll come back to that other question, but I want to go over this real quick before I forget. I talked about the fact that I lost my son, and he just lost somebody. I think it was his sister, if I'm not mistaken. He had just lost his sister right in the same year, but a little bit before Skylar passed. But when that happened, he was with this company, right? And he told me what it was like to be with that company while going through major grief. And I even told him, I was like, man, I don't know, I don't mean to say this in the wrong way because I don't believe in regret and I know we're always moving forward, but wow, I could have used the shit out of y'all. I was like, I would have much preferred, and what was funny, he's like, it would have been totally different and it will be. He's like, I'm not wishing anything bad, but if you ever go through something like that again, this is more of a family atmosphere, and it's kind of, it really is refreshing to talk to people that actually feel genuine. So before I go into that, I have always been told that I'm a human lie detector. It's part of the reason that I'm good at sales because I know when they're lying to me, even when I don't see them. I know most of the pathomons pretty much without even knowing what they are. I just know when people are lying. I have a sixth sense for it. Particularly if we are engaged in a conversation. And God, if we're face to face, don't even think about trying. And when talking to these folks, and I also have that same ability to sniff out bullshit reviews. One way to do that, I'm just telling you folks, always the good reviews are going to be good. Go to the negative reviews and read those 1-star reviews, and you'll find out how the company handles bad situations because that matters. But either way, from the very beginning and talking to them, they just felt genuine. And one of the things that my clients, because when I do business with somebody, they end up knowing me for years. Sometimes there'll be a lifelong connection. We tend to connect on LinkedIn. It's why I have almost 6,000. I know that's not huge, but I have almost 6,000 connections, and I don't really sit on LinkedIn at all. So I just use it really for communication and networking, right? So everything about them has told me that they were earnest. And when my clients tell me that I'm a genuine, they feel like I'm the genuine article. And then I feel that about these folks. I have never felt, I really don't think I've ever felt as good about an opportunity as this one going in. And, I told you I had more, but what's funny is yesterday I woke up and I'm telling you, man, I was in tears. And what I mean by that is I had interviewed with the COO on Friday, and he made it very clear that if I was to be chosen, they would hear back from me. But if I'm not, they wouldn't hear back from me. The polite thing about that is that at least he told me. I don't like it when that happens, when they don't give you that warning. If you give me that warning, then quite frankly, I'm okay with it. If you say, hey, if we're going to hire you, then you'll hear back from us. If we're not going to hire you, you won't. At least you're telling me and you're being transparent about your actions. So when he said that to me on Friday, and what's funny is he said he was going to pray about me over the weekend. And I knew I was going to do the same thing, talk to my wife, talk to my mom, about it. Because there is another company, like I said, that's looking at me, but their character is much lower. They look better, I will say that. Their logos and all that are much sharper, newer, mainstream type feel. But they're a bunch of fucking, you can tell they're just a bunch of money grubbing salespeople. So when I woke up, we're talking Tuesday, right? Monday, I didn't hear from him at all. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's. And because of that, I was pretty determined already from Tuesday morning on that I wasn't going to be hearing from these folks, right? And I have so many freaking bills looming over my head and debt that I'm trying to, and I won't even get into it, but I have that shit, right? And I was determined. I cannot tell you how many people I text, my best friend, one of my sons, as well as spoke to my wife and my mother and my father. I told all of them, at least 5 people. I was like, yep, they've passed me up. I can't believe it, because I had such engrossing conversations. Just no, I could not believe it. I was like, this feels exactly where I'm supposed to be, considering they actually believe that everything happens for a reason. They live their life by the same philosophies that I do, and that matters so much. I don't care what you believe. Everybody has a right to believe what they want to believe, but it makes a big difference if you're working with people who share the same common values and the same common outlooks, right? They don't have to share everything. I'm not saying that. I've said that before. Like, we are well more alike. Any 2 people are well more alike than they are not alike, right? Even though it might be that one thing that makes them hate one another, they are vastly more alike than not. That said, I was blown away. And I was like, okay, I can't believe I'm getting passed up again. Think about it, folks. We're talking October. I started looking technically, I didn't look for a job right away. So some of y'all may remember I was fired the day before Skylar was killed. I started a company the same day I was fired, literally. It's in the books. And what I mean by that is the date of creation is the 3rd of October, because I got fired that morning at 10 o'clock and I had formed an LLC by that afternoon. That being said, on the 21st, that Friday, I solidified a deal. When I say solidified, it was virtual handshakes, right? But nothing was signed. But I solidified a deal for $30,000 investment money, seed money, right, for the company. And the next day, Sky was killed. Obviously, the investors, it was 2 of them. They were buddies. One of them was a good buddy of mine. The other one, that guy had a really good buddy, but I didn't really know him. He totally got scared. Once he got scared, some other things happened. And he just told me, he's like, I wanted to come in with him and not separate. I totally got it. So that all fell apart very quickly. However, I didn't technically start looking for a job probably until, and that was the point that I was making, because I was putting that together, and that didn't fall apart until officially completely fall apart until halfway through November. And that's when I started looking for a job again, right? So November 2022 to June 2024, It has been tough. I have gotten consistently passed over. I can't tell you how many times that I went. Where you going? You leaving, buddy? Love you. I can't tell you how many times that I went through this same. That's why I was determined that I wasn't going to get the job, folks. I'd already gone through this same situation where I was one of two. I remember going into one. I don't know if I told you about this, but I went into one that was actually face to face. And what I mean by that is, it wasn't a virtual job. It was actually a job here in the Springs. I went into it. It was down to two people before the face to face interview. The COO of that company even said that I was definitely because the recruiter asked. And this one was one where the headhunter found me and that whole thing, if you know how that works. And she even said, yeah, man, he's number one. I got passed over for that one. And I won't even begin to tell you, but they said the most absurd shit about me. It was insane. They actually said I went through their cupboards, that I went through their cupboards in their break room. And that what they said is on my way out of the interview, I stopped and went through their cupboards and then left. Are you fucking kidding me? Who would do that? Yeah, that sounds strange. Like they told the recruiter that was an orange flag for them. For me, it was a red flag when they used the word fucking orange, by the way. I can't stand that. Just call a fucking rose a rose. Don't sit there and try to act like it's not a red flag. Yes, it is. You had a red flag because you made up some bullshit. The fact that you called it an orange flag. Another one of their orange flags, by the way, was that I was too comfortable. I had literally written them an email before I met them all and said, I thanked them profusely for how comfortable they made me, where I could be myself without feeling like I needed to be somebody different in order to impress them. And then, and that was all the way up until the face-to-face, right? I love the face-to-face too, because the owner came in. This is a 2-hour interview. They told me, they prepared me for it. Like, it's going to be a 2-hour interview. Well, right when I got there, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but you'll love this. Right when I got there, they were like, so I can't remember the guy's name, but they were like, so the owner, he's not going to be able to stay. He's only going to be able to make the first 30 minutes. Sorry. He has to go see a customer. It's a customer call. I get it. Here's where I fucked up with that one, but everything happens for reasons, folks. Okay. So I wasn't supposed to work there, and clearly I wasn't there, a bunch of assholes. But here's where I messed up. As a salesman, the moment that they said that, I should have rescheduled. I should have stopped right there and be like, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. If the main decision maker of me getting the job is leaving after only 25% of the meeting, yeah, I needed to stay. I needed to stop and reschedule, right? I didn't. It's okay. Everything happens for a reason. I am where I am now. I didn't. Went upstairs. After the first, so they had a series of questions. This was the first part of the interview. Halfway through me answering the second question, which, by the way, we're talking a whopping 7 minutes into the process, the fucking dude gets up and leaves. Not 30 minutes, not even 15. It wasn't even a full 7. Like 5-6 minutes goes by and the fucking dude leaves. I'm telling you right now, whatever I did, whatever stink, whatever attitude I portrayed that he didn't like, he'd already made his decision. And anybody with fucking common sense knows that. If you tell me, like, it was a smack in the face, I almost felt like right at that point just getting up, because I knew I was wasting my time. You tell me you're going to stay for at least 30 minutes and you apologize that you can only stay that long, and then you get up after 7, you were not interested in me. Right? So when I say I have been literally heartbroken, this is the longest I've ever gone without a job, except for when I was a drug dealer. And even then, technically, I wasn't without a job. I just didn't have a legitimate job. This is the longest I have gone without flow of income, right? So I was damn determined that I wasn't getting this job. They were going to pass me up. And I had pretty much not given up, but I had given up on this job and was already making plans for, what was I going to do to move on? What was I going to do next to get out of the funk, right? And what's funny is creditors are calling me all the time. I can't, dude, I'm not exaggerating, anywhere between 70 to 100 calls a day that I do not answer. It's the same, creditors calling 4 or 5 times a day to try to get me to pay them some money. Sorry, I just don't have any money, guys. That said, I'm screening the shit out of my calls, right? So the phone rings, and it said one thing that was not the name of the company, only because the guy has multiple companies, and I just didn't put it together. Because he has a real estate company, and then he has this other company that is in real estate, but it's not the same thing, right? And I saw the call, and I even looked at it. I remember I was like, nope, don't recognize it. So I let it go to voicemail, right? I had actually forgotten about it. And what I mean by that is because I do that so many times a day. It's more like motor reflexes to just go ahead and quiet the call and move on with life, right? But everything happens for a reason. And I remember something, I can't remember what it was, but something made me want to go back into my phone to do something. And I saw that they left a message. I will always, if they leave a message, then I'll always look, because how do I say it? Probably 50% of the time, if somebody leaves a message, they're not a creditor or there's something different. They're not trying to collect money from me, right? They're actually trying to get in touch with me. So I went and looked at it, and I was like, holy shit. I already knew then that I had the job, by the way. I'm not trying to sound rude, but they said, if you hear back from us, you have the job. And this was the owner of the founder, right? The guy calling me to welcome me aboard. And I sent him through the voicemail. Luckily, whatever it was that made me look. So I called him back not even 5 minutes later, but I immediately called him back as soon as I saw who it was. I didn't take any time at all, but that was now 5 minutes after he called. And then we had a nice conversation. And what's funny is I knew I had the job, but he didn't actually say it until the end. Right at the end, he's like, so-and-so is starting on the 24th Monday. And I was like, yeah, I'm good for that. I didn't even let him offer. I was like, I'm good with that. He's like, okay, cool. Because I knew where he was going, right? Now, funny enough, the other guy that he got, I told you, we had this group interview that we did last week, right? Seems like it was Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Either way, we had this group interview. I don't think I told you about this, but what's funny is the 3 of us showed up, right? We were on time. Nothing crazy about that. But this is an interview for a sales position where, let's just say, we're talking about making a sizable income, number one, and it's a well-known fact, you're going to be meeting clients, not necessarily face-to-face because it is virtual, but you're going to be meeting clients via Zoom, right? So I don't care if you're standing there without any underwear, you damn better look good from the waist up, right? That's just, to me, that's common sense. I don't mean to sound rude. So the guy answers, and I was the first one with my camera on. I mean, I knew what was going on. The guy has a Zoom meeting. Obviously, he wants the cameras to be turned on. He wants to fucking see you and kind of size you up a little bit, get an idea of who you are, not just who your voice is, but who you are, because you're going to be representing the company the same way. So second guy turns on his camera, and he too is at a night. I had a similar shirt to this, but something a little bit nicer, a little more work oriented, not so casual. Put a button down, right? At the time I was nice and shaved, so I just had mustache, beard, soul patch in the in the burns. And then the third guy, what was funny is, first of all, the dude had to ask, hey man, you gonna turn your camera on? And he's like, oh yeah, wait a second. The guy was doing, I mean, I have, y'all can't see it, but right underneath this camera is an iMac. And then there's a MacBook Pro over here, right? But the iMac is specifically on this desk for me to sit and conduct business. Like it is it's my work computer. I use my laptops quite a bit, and I have, if y'all know how Chrome is, you can have profiles and they're synced. So I use my other ones, particularly around the house or when I'm going somewhere. But that said, the iMac is the work computer. And that's where I'm usually doing all my Zoom meetings because it's steady and it's solid. So the dude turns on his camera and he's on his phone in a t-shirt. Black t-shirt, plain t-shirt, didn't say anything. Thank God, dude. I think the guy would have probably just had him hang up right then and there if it had like a some kind of logo or branding on it, right? But the guy was on his phone. So his camera, like one of the reasons you don't do meetings from your phone like that when you're talking about business is because it's a shaky image that you're conversating with, right? All three of us are sitting there with stationary cameras talking. I'm a stander, but the other two are sitting. And this dude is like kicked back. I don't even, like, imagine it the way that people do when they're kicked back in their phones here. He's like kicked back like this and his phone's kind of jiggling around. I was like, dude, there's no way you're getting this job. I didn't think to myself that I'm for sure getting it, but I was like, there is no fucking way that you're getting this job. And what's funny is I tell you the whole story because when I was talking to the owner yesterday, when he brought me on board, he's like, he was making reference to that meeting. And he even said, he's like, yeah, this guy's coming on board. And I was like, oh, cool. What about the other guy? He's like, yeah, no, we're not. I was like, he said, he's like, he lost me the moment that he turned his camera on and he was doing the meeting from his phone in a t-shirt. And I was like, I kind of thought that. I honestly do. I'm telling you, it was so, and the guy's intelligent. Don't get me wrong. And he's probably a good salesman, right? As long as you don't have to see him. And maybe that's where maybe he doesn't have that experience because he's in real estate, but maybe he doesn't have the experience of that. Maybe his experience is more physical. What I mean by that is not virtual. Maybe what he has done has all been local. So he hasn't really needed the experience of doing it from a single point rather than going out and doing it all around, right? He's more of a networker, face-to-face kind of guy. So anyway, though, yeah, it was funny, man. He told me, I really, to this, even now, like, because it was so out of place. I literally remember thinking to myself, this is Sesame Street. Which one of these is not like the other? That dude did not belong. And I am still kind of surprised that the guy didn't just say, hey man, take off. But I think he's too nice. Honestly, if it had been a single meeting, a one-on-one a one-on-one rather than a group, I think he probably would have ended the meeting very, very quickly. I don't think he would have taken the time to do all the things that he did with the three of us. I think he would have, gotten off the call and off the meeting, gotten out of the meeting very, very quickly. So I get the job, right? I am ecstatic. I end up talking to the guy, I don't know how long, yesterday. And while I'm talking to him, I'm sitting there texting at the same time, texting my family and some of my closest friends. Hey, I got the job. I got the job. And I know things are going to get better, right? But the reality is things are going to get better, but it is a deep hole that has been dug, So I know the one nice thing about sales, number one, anytime you start selling a new product, even if you're within the industry, you have a learning curve. That's usually no longer than 90 days. I typically, and I'm not trying to sound like a douche or, I believe that I'm a fairly modest guy when it comes to most things, but sales is that's what I have mastered is selling. And I usually chop that down to like 30 days. That said, I'm in so much debt that it's going to take about 90 days to start to, not to start, probably in about 90 days, I'll be back in a place where I can breathe again. Right. And fortunately, I did not have to file bankruptcy, but I know it's going to be hard and it's going to be tough. And it's really going to be tough still, like, because I start working Monday, but I'm sure with my luck that Monday is probably not the beginning of a pay period. But it's like, or it is the very beginning of a pay period. So I won't see a check for 3 weeks. I might get lucky and who knows? I haven't found out if they pay weekly or not. I really don't give a shit. So knowing that it's going to be tough, right? The first thing I did this morning when I woke up, I knew Verizon was going to hit me with a bill, but I figured since I didn't have enough money in there, the bill would just not happen, like it wouldn't go through. Well, there's something really strange that the banks have developed is if you have agreed to a reoccurring payment, it takes the payment and they get their fucking money no matter how negative it makes your account, right? So I woke up this morning and I was freaked out because we were negative multiple hundreds of dollars. And I was like, oh my God. All I can say is I kept my cool. I got a little upset. I got a little freaked out, but I knew one way or another, it's not going to kill me, right? If I have to go and sell my shit, I will, because I just don't care about this stuff. And what I mean by that is I care about my things, but there's so much of it that I don't care about. And we live in such a abundance. I'm going to be giving a lot of it away once I have the money. Anyway, I was trying to sell it right now because I need the money. But the reality is, whatever I don't sell over the next 3 months, I'll probably give most of it away by the time the holidays are here, just to simplify and minimize, right? And all I can say is that it comes back around. I sold my bike not too long ago, and I remember thinking, oh, that really sucks, but it's not a big deal. I'll get a better one and a nicer one. It doesn't matter. But these first few weeks I know are going to be, particularly these first few weeks. So, it's going to be the old financial juggling, if you will, to try to make sure that everybody has a little tiny piece that knows that it's all about to start. But that's what I was saying. That's the beautiful thing about commission is it's uncapped, right? I have a small base. What's funny is this job, I'm not going to go into the actual figures. I'll just say this. My best year at my last job will be less money than my worst year at this job, even including the first year, but the base is significantly smaller. It's smaller by $9,000 a year as far as the base salary. And then it actually is going to be decreased. And what I mean by that, that's just the starting base. Then the base goes down by another 12. So technically the base will be 21,000 less than my last base. That said, you heard me. It's where the commission is where this one's at. They supply all the leads. They have more leads than they have to back down. They have to throttle down, and they throttle just enough so that they have enough leads for a new salesman, right? But they have an unlimited, abundant amount of sales or leads. One of the things I'll tell you folks is it's truly recession proof. Real estate is always selling. So people are always buying things that are either homes or about homes or have to do with selling homes. Like that's always going to happen. So, the nice thing about sales, and I am kind of pitching it here for anybody who's not a salesman, but has thought about it. If you ever want to talk to me, I'm open. And I already have developed multiple sales processes, and I am in the midst, not the time to write a book right now, but I am in the mixed. And by mixed, oh my God, I'm in the midst of writing my own book that I plan on releasing. Probably it was originally supposed to be at 55, but I may end up postponing that either 3 to 5 years and do it when I'm 60. Either way, sales is the thing that I know. Why do I love sales? Because you can go from downtrodden to living the fancy life in the matter of less than a month. In 30 days, you can turn your life around. It's all up to you, right? I have 24 hours in a day. Now, do I want to spend them with my family? Absolutely. Do I enjoy that? Absolutely. Will my family mind if I literally bury my nose into my work for the next month to get us, hugely out of that position and maybe even continue that trend for another month or two to quickly get us back into a place that we all have comfortability and can do things together again? No, they're not going to mind. And I pray to keep you folks along for the ride as we go. There's a lot that's going to be going on. What I mean by that is, for those of you who don't know, KO is going to be will always continue. KO is Knock Off LLC, or you can call it by its beautiful name, Knock Off the Cough. If you don't know what Knock Off the Cough is, please go to knockoff.one and you'll learn all about it. But in the meantime, what I really love about this opportunity is I believe in learning is living, as I have preached to you. For those of you who've known me for a while, I continue to preach that. If you're not learning, then you're literally starting to die. And change is required learning. Anytime there's a change, you are required to learn something new to handle that change. Even if you don't think it, trust me, somewhere that change has a ripple effect in your life, and somewhere you've got to learn something new and implement it. So change is learning, learning is living. I will continue to live, and I will always fight for it. And this is the kind of place that gets all of that. They truly do. And I believe I'm going to blossom in a different way even than I ever have. And what I mean by that is surrounding yourself with those people that are supportive and like-minded is what really helps you achieve what you're trying to do in this world. These people, I cannot stress it, they really want to help people. Like they get it. My whole thing is, if I'm helping somebody, the money will come to me. I will make plenty of money if my goal is not to make money, but to help as many people as I can. That's the same goal that they help. They still look at the numbers and they're like, if I help this many people, this is how much we'll make. That's you have to, if you're running a business, folks, you truly have to, because that business thrives on money, right? A business is not like humans that you can feed it food and it's going to live. It has to have money in order to live. But if your goal and your true mission is not to make money, but to help people with their situation, whatever that might be, then again, the money comes to you. It always does. I have learned this so many times that it's stupid, and it's why I now am to the point where I really don't even, when I'm dealing with somebody, when I'm working a deal, I do not even consider. It used to be that I would always think, oh, how much am I going to make? I don't even think about that. I don't think about it until I finally, the deal's done and I put in the number and go like, oh, that's how much I make. Cool. And it feels a lot better. Being completely transparent, if somebody tells me that they're going to do a deal but they haven't signed, yes, I will sit there with my wife and be like, hey, I know that deal's coming through next week and I'll make this. But that's again after I have gotten some kind of confirmation that they are moving forward. And what's funny is I even worry sometimes about jinxing. I have a whole thing about jinxing. There's certain people that I'll look at that deal, and there's other ones and my wife will tell you, but I'm like, I don't want to know how much I'm making until they actually, I know they said they're going to, but this one feels weird. I don't want to jinx it. So I just don't even care. I'll wait till the deal is done and they have made their first payment. then and only then will I look and see how much I'm making. So, uh, I've been on for an hour tonight. I'll tell you this, I think, and maybe I can get some response from whoever's out there, but it seems like starting later in the evening works out a lot better for folks. Like starting at, I've been starting the last few times at around 9:20 Mountain, so that's 11:20 Eastern, 8:20 Pack time, and that seems to be better for folks to be able to join and be a part of it rather than watching later the recorded version. And I think ultimately most people like watching the live over the recorded. So if any of you feel like just saying yes, that's all I'm asking. I know that most people don't chat, but if you have a moment and you agree with this being a better time slot than what I was doing before was 7:20 Mountain, so 9:20 Eastern and 6:20 Pac. So we're talking about basically 2 hours difference, but it seems to be a significant difference in how many people are able to actually attend. So I hope all of y'all had a, by the way, happy hump day. Happy Juneteenth. I always pronounce that wrong. I meant to say that at the beginning. I hope that everybody's having a wonderful week thus far. And as I said, this will be promoting a lot of different change and things are always changing, and that is good. And I believe that this is only going to promote ultimately good change. But here's the reality. You're going to have good and bad. Keep this in mind, right? If you're on a trend of good, I'm not saying jinx yourself or, in essence, make something bad happen, but be aware that at some point something will ultimately change the momentum, and that's okay. If you look at it that way and go, okay, I know everything is going great and I know something will happen, you are simply more prepared. And when it does happen, you're not nearly as flipped out, freaked out, and panicking about what to do, right? You're like, okay, I know I can handle this. The other thing to think about too, when something bad is thrown your way, realize that you're going to learn something from it. Number one. And to me, even more importantly, ultimately, something good will happen due to this so-called bad or shitty event, whatever it is. I'm telling you, take a look at it, folks. Do a little experiment, and if you will, on your own, or maybe with a loved one, maybe your partner, or maybe a brother or sister, or even a parent, or even a child. Anybody who you're extremely close with, right? Like whoever maybe is in your life that you live with. Take a stroll down memory lane and look at the bad things that have happened to you. Or you can do it the other way. I do it both ways. You can also look at some of the best things that have ever happened to you. It's actually more fun to do it that way. But either way, take these events. And let's just say it's the bad, because that's the way I usually teach people to do it. And then you can start to do it the other way on your own. But you take a bad event and then take that event and domino it, right? And what I mean by domino is, what did it cause? What did it cause? Da, da, da. You will find that ultimately, it's not just one, two, but this is the real important part. At some point, something much better than the shitty thing is going to happen, because the shitty thing did happen. It is the catalyst to an even greater moment. Multiple great moments, by the way, but there's always one that's even better, right? And what I'll give you, for instance, just because this one, I'm not dwelling, so I hope nobody feels that way. But when Sky died, within 10 days, I had 2 new female friends who were like daughters due to their relationship with him. And I had never met them. One was a secret girlfriend. The other one was the young woman that tried to save his life that day. She wrote a poem that is, and it's not like the psychics where the poem is, in general, it kind of describes my son. This poem is very detailed about it was what she believed to be the reality of the guy she tried to save without knowing him. She didn't meet me until 9 days later. So that to me in itself, the fact that she wrote this incredible poem and that these two girls now call me Pops and they come over not every single Sunday, but probably every other Sunday, at least, if not more, and spend time with me and love me and care about me. And I love and care about them. They are special. That is already incredible. That is incredible. Is it more incredible than losing my son? No, but I believe that day is still yet to come. Sometimes it takes, years, literally. I've talked about this before with people, and it's funny because I'll say, sometimes it takes 10, 20 years for the greater thing to happen, right? But it does happen. And what was this guy one time, he's like, sometimes 30. I'm like, you're fucking old, aren't you, dude? I mean, I know I'm old, but I was like, if you're watching those kind of things. Now that I've said that, if you go back, what I told you, it's actually ultimately easier, right? Look at all the great things that have happened. And instead of moving forward, reverse engineer it, right? And go backwards. How did you get there? What caused that? And you will find that, again, it's a world of cause and effect. When something horrible happens, it's going to cause ultimately something greater to happen. And here's the flip side. When something greater happens, ultimately it's going to cause something bad to happen. It's just the way of the world. It's why the yin and yang is even a thing, folks, right? Oops. The whole concept of this symbol, and I call that karmic justice because it has the scales holding the thing on there. I think isn't it? I can't see it on here, but I believe it's a watermark on my screen. But the reality is the concept of this and what it's show is equal. It only appears unequal when we don't pay attention to one side or the other, right? And I know a lot of people are like, they see other people like, it just seems like everything great happens to them. Those people, they're still dealing with bad things. They do not dwell on them, right? And when you see people who are so downtrodden that they're just, everything sucks, right? And I've been there. So I'm not, by no means am I saying that this has not been me. But when you're in that place, you're only paying attention to the negative and you completely ignore the positive things that do happen. It is a world of balance. Life is balance. When you truly accept that and realize, hey, I'm going to have shitty days, but without them, I wouldn't have the good days, and vice versa. It really does become a different world that you live in. And what's funny, just to wrap it up, that was one of the best phone calls I'd ever gotten about getting a job and all the shitty things. It's like it erased the whole shitty time from looking for a job to not. And that's how it works, because we only have this moment, right? You only live in this moment. You don't live in the past. And technically speaking, even my father and I were just talking about this. We might know the future up to a little bit in the sense of we're planning this, right? And we know certain things are happening, but we really don't know the future. It can change in a heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. Like it does. It changes in a heartbeat for somebody all the time. Like while I've been streaming, I wouldn't even want to give you the stats on how many car accidents, how many deaths, how many lives have been forever changed in an instant that they didn't see it coming, right? Nobody does. It is part of what we live. The beautiful thing is most of the time we don't see the tragic shit coming, but we do many times see the good things coming and know that that's what we're trying to get to and achieve. But it's all of it though. You have to. Here's the way that that I really pointed out to people, and it sticks to me the truest this way. And just ask yourself this, okay? How could you possibly know an incredibly glorious day? How would you even know you were having one if you didn't understand what a entirely shit day was? If you don't have the comparison, how can you understand it? I simply ask you that. You know, is it something that you can feel, or no? It would be if you didn't understand a bad situation, a bad day, a bad whatever. How would you know the good version? You can say there's no God, and that's fine. Everybody has their right to believe. I have come to a place where I absolutely know, because it's been proven to me beyond the shadow of a doubt. And it gives you the understanding of why there is, a leader of the evil side, if you will, as well as the good side, because you have to have both in order to exist. Otherwise, you would have a mundane existence either way. People, they talk about hell, being this just repeated suffering. If that's the reality, trust me, it's not going to take very long before you're not suffering, because it's just the same thing over and over, and it doesn't. Let me rephrase that. It will be suffering because you're doing the same thing over and over, but the same can be said, and this has been discussed and examined on many levels. If nothing bad happened to you, you would become very bored and probably cease to want to even try to live. It is the challenge. It is the hurdles that we go through that literally cause us to excel. It causes us to be innovative, right? Without pain and suffering, you would not move forward. It's taken me I'm going to do another one. It's taken me 52 years to fully comprehend and understand that. It's why, even though I absolutely know there's a God, and I know Christians don't like hearing me say this, because I've said it to a few of them, and that's just a horrible thought, because they're so hooked on the written version. And let me just tell you, I apologize, Christians. I'm not going to get into a big conspiracy, but if you think that the King James version is the ultimate version, there's a lot that's being kept from you, and the Vatican is keeping a lot from you. I'm going to stop right there. But I bring this up to Christians, and they don't like this concept. I'm like, I don't believe that. I believe that you move forward and you move back. And what I mean by that is the common belief amongst most religions, right? And I get why. I mean, even in the Quran, it leads you to believe that you're going to have this incredible, like, beyond belief life in the afterlife if you give yourself to God, right? I don't believe that works that way. Based on life and experience, and even what God also talks about in other passages and other messages and other ways, part of why God made this world was to experience life. Because put yourself in God's shoes, and you are everything, right? You're the Alpha, you're the Omega. That means a couple of things. Number one, you have no surprises. If you know everything, if there is nothing unknown to you, there's no surprises. There's also, because there's no surprises and you do know everything, even if you can't foretell the future, which most likely, if you have that kind of knowledge, you would be able to, because you would simply be able to deduce and understand what's going to happen next at that kind of level of thinking. But aside from that, you would become very bored. There would be no bad or good. And why I say that, I know somebody like, well, just because you know everything doesn't mean there's no bad. There's nothing. If you know everything, you are now at a nothing point of why. Like it's also examined. I know it's a comic book and I hate to bring that up, but it's actually more of a graphic novel and it's really great. But Watchmen deals with this, Dr. Manhattan really deals with this a lot. Like it's a boring existence if you know everything. So God created this place that we could come down and live. And that's why each one of us have just a little tiny piece of God in us that allows us to experience life without knowing what's ahead, because it's all about learning. And if you don't have trials and tribulations, you won't have growth. Now, once you come to that understanding, which I've talked about this whole fucking show, I don't see how there could be a heaven or hell as the way that the Vatican or the Christians have presented it. Un momento. First of all, to me, both versions of what Christians and Catholics both versions of what Christians and Catholics say are heaven and hell, to me, both sound like an absolute hell. And let me just explain, and then I'll end the show. Supposedly, we go to heaven if we've done, had a good life, right? It sucks because my KO I need to refill. I could barely smell anything. If nothing bad were to happen to you, and there was a utopia like that, right, where nothing bad happens to anybody, that would be a very horrible existence. Like, really think about that. There's nothing to challenge you. There's nothing like that. You just do, like, how would you grow? So on the flip side, right, you're just going to be tortured for hell repeatedly, maybe live a horrible memory over and over. Honestly, if you're living that horrible memory over and over, yeah, that's going to be hell. But if you just keep living it over, would you even know you're living it over? And if you did know you were living it over, then would it be as horrible, or would you just start to be like, okay, well, here we go again? Either one seems like hell. So what I've come to believe, based on studying all these religions and doing what I've done and all that, and even my own conversations with God, if you will, not to just quote a book, but I've had my own conversations. I don't hear God speak in words, speaks in signs for me, but signs are good enough because they're very specific, and I'm not going to get into that any further. But it is obvious to me that once we live this life, we go, there's probably some different, obviously there's different choices. I think some people can obtain a higher level of consciousness, maybe even become an angel. And I believe that's what happened with my son. But the real point of what I'm talking about is I think you go to another level of consciousness no matter what. We have a subconscious and we have a conscious. The more that if we were able to use more of our conscious awareness, our conscious brain, then we would accomplish more and drive even harder. And I think ultimately this world will get there, because let's face it, I don't think that the cavemen were using the same percentage as we are. And what I mean by percentage is the average human uses approximately 10% of the brain power. Einstein was at 12, right? So I don't think that the the cavemen were probably cooking on much more than 2. So we have evolved. And one day this world, this existence will get higher and higher. But I think when we perish here, we go to another plane of existence where, depending on what we did and how we grew here, we will either go to a higher level of consciousness. If you want to put a number on it, maybe you go to 15 or 17, something like that. Or if you didn't learn enough, then you're going to go backwards, or it might be that maybe you learned just enough and you literally have to redo the life over. I think it's the in-between times, in between lives, that we have recollection, but it's all about ultimately trying to move forward. So that's what I believe. It's what I've come to, because to me, I go with what makes the most sense. Does it actually make sense that we go somewhere where nothing bad happens? No, because we've seen we understand what that would be like. That would not be challenging, and you would ultimately have no will to live. So I'm not even going to bother with it. That's not science. That's not religion. That's psychology, and it's been proven, right? You have to have purpose. If you never fail, you really lose purpose. Think about it. It's okay that, you're succeeding with something, but you have to have constant little setbacks or diversions or whatever in order to learn. So I love all of you folks. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week. I will see you Friday. Funny enough, I'm actually going to go do Saturday. I'm going to go hang out at the local cemetery and do a little bit of paranormal investigation. That should be fun. We have this cemetery here where we are. It's called Evergreen. It is one of the most, I think it's the most in the state, but has the most hauntings and it is extremely, and this city has got some serious history. You got a lot of mines, a lot of stuff here. You got the military, you got the Olympics, their headquarters are here. So just a lot of crazy stuff. So that should be fun. That's going to be Saturday. So I love all of y'all. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Have an incredible weekend, but I'll see you on Friday to give you a well wishing for the weekend. Either way, have a great Thursday and a great Friday, and I'll see you Friday night. All right. Love you guys. Peace.
I switch here, I'm a strange fuck. Consist on ain't something I could say well. Throw my change into the wishing for a change well. Wish your day a swell life for the next come. And when the next come, pretend that it's the best one. Like I ain't even gonna try and say that to the next one.